Hi everyone, this is Wade, VK1MIC, and I just wanted to do a quick re-record of the presentation from the other night at the club due to a recording error. Before we kick off today, I really just wanted to make a couple of points. Everyone would have heard in the last 24 hours, New South Wales RFS had a water bombing aircraft go down tragically, and it looks like all 3 lives on board were lost. I pay my respects to those incredible airmen and women who are involved in all aerial firefighting, and to know that we have lost 3 people who have given their lives trying to suppress fires in and around our country, and in particular the state of New South Wales, is terrible. And also the team from Colston Aviation who owned the aircraft, and I believe the crew were part of as well. Incredible tragic loss of life involved there. So on that somber note, we might sort of kick forward. I'm going to give a quick presentation regarding my deployment to the Kempsey fires out of the Kempsey Fire Control Centre and the Verges Creek Air Base in November 2019 as an air radio operator, or the ground to air link via RF. So without further ado, we might kick on. So as I said, I was involved with the RFS, with VRA, that's the Volunteer Rescue Association of New South Wales, and a lot of people might be asking, well, why the VRA? And in this case, it's actually because the VRA are a recognised emergency service in New South Wales underneath the Act, which I've placed on the screen here. And furthermore, WICEN, which is the amateur radio emergency services arm in Australia, are recognised in New South Wales underneath the VRA as a specialty communication squad. So for the purposes of this deployment, I became a member of New South Wales WICEN, and therefore New South Wales VRA, which allowed me to undertake this deployment. So under the auspices of the VRA, I headed off to Kempsey. So that's up north of Port Stephens and south of Coffs Harbour. I've put the fire control region on the screen there so you can roughly see the region that we're working in. The little blue helicopter is Verges Creek Air Base. That's the base that we're operating out of every day. That was a National Parks office located, strangely enough, at an area called Verges Creek. And the red triangle, that was the Kempsey Fire Control Centre. That was the Regional Operations Centre for all firefighting activity, roughly within that red polygon that I've put on the screen there. And you can see it's a vast area of not only wilderness, but of fuel, if you want to talk about it from a firefighting perspective. So what were some of the things that we were doing each day? So on the screen shortly will be a list of the types of aircraft that are involved in firefighting here in Australia. And if I flip the view for you so you can see it a bit better, there we go. So this is released from the National Aviation Firefighting Centre, or the NAFC. They are the national contract holders and the national leaseors of the firefighting aircraft. And you'll see there's everything there from Squirrel helicopters, right the way through to bird dog aircraft, which I'll talk about shortly, and through to the LATs, the large air tankers, and the VLATs, the very large air tankers. Sadly, we lost one of the VLATs yesterday. Tragic. Okay. So on the screen is a Long Ranger, or Bell Long Ranger. We had a number of, I had 5 aircraft at maximum any one time underneath our airbase, and that was the Bell carried what we call either the air attack or the air observer. So the AA, they were the aerial supervisor for firefighting activities for the firefighting aircraft. It often in the Long Ranger. So we would, when the AA is in the air, we would be handing tasks to them and having them allocate as required to other aircraft. So basically we didn't do that direct contact if the AA was in the air. They were largely or quite often within the Long Ranger, just because of the longevity and the speed to be able to move between the different fire zones. The aircraft that we had the most type of was the Squirrels, and they are an incredibly versatile machine. We had Squirrels operating buckets, so dropping water from a bucket that's underslung from the aircraft. We had Squirrels undertaking a mapping activity. So they use specialist equipment to map the leading or fire edge of the fire, so the fire that's actually burning, and that's incredibly important for the incident management team or the IMT to actually direct firefighting activities. Additionally, the squirrel we had, which I'll show a bit later in some pictures, had the capability to do aerial backburning, essentially dropping flaming ping pong balls out of the aircraft using a special distribution setup, and that allowed us to do tactical backburns in incredibly rugged environments where it was either not safe or not possible to get fire crews into. And the real big and the incredibly large aircraft that we were using, or the largest of the rotary wings that we were using, were the Bell 212s, and in this configuration, also known as a UH-1H or the Huey. This is an updated version. In this configuration, you can see on the screen, this is using a belly tank. So it can release that nozzle that's currently restrained there and dip into tanks, into dams, into rivers to suck up water. They can also use buoy walls, which is a static water source that RFS generally set up if it's a distance from the water for trucks and aircraft to fill up from. The other aircraft configuration in this style that we were using is a bucket. So it was hanging below it. It can carry much larger water quantities than the Squirrel in the previous slide. Now, this is what's known as a bird dog aircraft. So it's a twin fixed wing with generally high wing, so the wing is above the fuselage of the aircraft. That contains an air attack supervisor. So before I mentioned about the AA, this is the AAS. So they are the lead aircraft for the LATs and the VLATs. They'll often be working in tandem, and in addition, these will command the airspace that they are operating in to make sure that other aircraft, like whether they are fixed-wing water bombers or helicopters working on fire lines, are well clear and don't pose a safety risk to the LATs and VLATs that are dropping water. These guys move much slower than the LATs and the VLATs, so they can stay on station and get much better visibility of the fire that we're currently working on, so that they can provide direction literally down to, quote, follow me, where the aircraft follow each other, to give the indication of where they need to be. So that is just referred to as a bird dog aircraft. And on screen now is a Coulson C-130. So this is a VLAT, and very large air tanker. They are dropping somewhere about 15,000 litres, I believe, from memory, and we operated with one of those and a bird dog aircraft once during my 14 days at Kempsey, and they obviously provide incredible capability to deliver lots of water or lots of retardant into some pretty rugged territory. and the C-130 is a tried and tested airframe for this. So the air bases that operate with the LATs and the VLATs are Coffs Harbour, RAF Richmond in Western Sydney, Canberra, and I believe there's some more that are starting to be either temporarily set up for the fire season. So they are tasked to fires up and down the coast as needed. So on screen now is my desk, essentially. This is Verges Creek Air Base Operations. What's not shown in this photo is this is a very large planning room based out of New South Wales Parks office. This is set up for communications. So on that desk you can see there's maps, there's logs, there's pictures of aircraft so you can get the right call signs. And I'll pull in now and show you the radio setup that we're operating each day. So I'll get to what's being shown with the red arrow very shortly, but on screen you can see 3 radios there indicated. We've got the New South Wales GRN, so that's the government radio network that operates P25 digital trunking. To the left of that you've got the airband. So to operate as an ARO you must hold a qualification of at least a CASA level qualification to operate on the airband. This radio was sitting on what's known as the Fire CTAF, which is a central coordinated simplex frequency that the aircraft operating on the fires can talk to each other. That was a near constant stream of communication throughout the day, so aircraft knew where each other was and could avoid any near misses. Further moving to the left is the New South Wales Parks radio. That was my link back to the incident management team at Kempsey Fire Control. They would task us via that or via telephone to the airbase manager, who would then in turn task me. I'll give you a sec, but of the 3 radios that are currently on the screen, which do you think was the most heavily used radio throughout the deployment? No, it's actually not the airband. Despite working with helicopters all day, it was actually the New South Wales GR to have a standard fit out of radios, no matter where they're working, and they can just use the correct talk group to receive taskings. It allows them also almost day by day to move between regions as well. And the item with the red arrow, that's a cooking timer, a 30-minute countdown timer. So in the next couple of slides, I'm going to show you my logs, but I'm required as an ARO to maintain SARS, S-A-R-S, which is basically an at minimum 30-minute heartbeat check with each and every aircraft. And that ensured that I spoke to them between minute 0 and minute 5 and minute 30 and minute 35, so the top and the bottom of the hour. This made sure no matter how busy we got or how quiet we were, that those observations were kept on time every single time. So on screen now is my flight following log. So that's the SARS requirement. It's really a tick in the box every half hour that the aircraft is in the air for each and every aircraft. There was the ability to make contact with the AA, the air attack, or the AOB, which is the air observer, and they have set ratios of aircraft they can work with or under, aircraft can work under them. So within those set ratios, I could actually get as ops normal, as it's known, from the air attack. They can say, I can see aircraft 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ops normal, and I could take that as ops normal because they can see those aircraft operating in conditions. Excuse me. Now on screen now is the day-to-day, minute-by-minute log that I was keeping of every single communication with the aircraft. So on top of maintaining SARS watch, I'm also logging what the aircraft are doing, whether they are returning to a forward base for fuel, whether they are transiting to a new fire ground, whether they're returning to base, whether they're moving from base to a new fire, things like that. On a quiet day, I'd probably fill out about 15 of those pages. On a busy day, it's sky's the limit, pardon the pun. So during the SARS phase, which is what I'm sort of showing here, if an aircraft moves beyond minute 5 or minute 35, we start entering into formal observation periods and periods where I'm trying to work every single radio on that desk, as well as telephones, right down to SMS, to try and get hold of that aircraft and the crew to find out, are they simply in a bad radio position, or is there something wrong and that we need to start taking formal action. These are all undertaken. As soon as we start moving past 5 minutes, I myself am calling over the airbase manager to start observations and start working other channels so we can try and see what's happened with those aircraft. Thankfully, it only happened once to me, and the aircraft was simply in a bad RF position, and I was able to get a relay from another aircraft to say that they were okay and they were speaking on the fire CTAF, even if I couldn't hear them or make contact with them. So on screen now is a bit of a look at how the airspace operates above a fire. So the HeliTAC, that's your medium and heavy water bombing helicopters. Also included in that range there would be Firebird aircraft, which are the Squirrel and Light aircraft. That's their call sign designation. Firebird followed by a number, and you'll see them painted on the aircraft. HeliTAC followed by the number. And moving from bottom to top there, you've got the fixed wing bomber. They're just known as bomber. Or when the smaller aircraft have floats attached, I believe they're called fire bosses. I never actually worked with any of the fixed wing small aircraft. Then moving up the stack, you've got the air attack, and then on the top you've got the air observer. So the observer is literally taking observations on fire movement, on critical assets and things like that. So this is one of the aircraft we're operating with each and every day. This is a Squirrel with a long bucket underneath it. So that's a Firebird. And you can see that bucket is quite a way below the aircraft. And you can imagine the pendulum effect that happens when the aircraft's flying and they've got the water behind them, and then they slow down and it starts to come under it. So it takes quite a lot of pilot skill to operate firefighting, as well as they're operating very low and in very poor. Keep that in mind. And this is the Sheriff aircraft. From memory, it is an ex-US Sheriff's Department helicopter. I'm not sure which state or which county it belonged to. However, it was tasked to us. This was the Swiss Army knife of aircraft we operated with. It carried a bucket when it needed to. It carried an air observer when it needed to. It did mapping using the company's mapping member who was assigned to the aircraft, as well as doing aerial backburning operations. Excuse me. And up next was probably one of my favourite aircraft. I believe that call sign was HeliTAC 422. No, that was 224, I believe. Anyway, so obviously there's a bit of months now between my time, but that is a Huey with a belly tank. Incredibly versatile aircraft, and the ability to quickly suck up a lot of water and place it in a very defined period, very defined placement in the fire was highly sought after. That was almost our quick response aircraft. If a new fire was spotted, we would send an air observer out to get a bearing on the fire and get a location, but then we'd often dispatch that aircraft. So this is a look within the Kempsey Fire Control Centre at the morning briefings. You can see myself there with the white polo from WICEN Communications, and the SES member, that's Matt, the airbase manager. So he has overall day-to-day control over what's happening at the air bases, ensuring safety, ensuring taskings are being met, and ensuring that everyone's maintaining safe and normal operating practices. And Micah, the person in the New South Wales Parks outfit, he is the air observer. So he's currently speaking with Christian, who the guy in the white business shirt. He is a RFS paid member. He's an RFS operations officer. He's receiving the daily download or the debrief from Micah on what the fire activity was either doing last night or receiving taskings from this morning. And RFS have a really, really great system of working together. So I might just quickly show a sped up video of what a morning at Verges Creek looked like. I'll talk you through it as it goes, and hopefully the sped up audio doesn't go over my voice too much. But if it does, what you're going to see is the Bell Jet Ranger on the far right of the screen near the fuel tanker. It will start up first and head out to start getting an appreciation of what the fires did the night before. This is approximately 10 o'clock in the morning. This is after the wind has picked up a little bit, so the smoke starts moving around and getting away so we can get better visibility. And then next to take off will be the squirrel. You'll see it take off with its bucket underneath it, followed by the belly tank Huey, which is in the very far back of the picture. And finally, you'll see the sheriff, the squirrel on the far left, take off. I'll reposition the camera and you'll see that one take off. This is what a normal look at morning operations at Verges Creek look like. And as you can see, the highway is directly beside the airbase, which led to some comical moments when drivers would slow down to take photos on the side of the Pacific Highway with vehicles and trucks are moving at 110 kilometres an hour. So there goes the Jet Bell Ranger. Correction, Bell Jet Ranger. And there's our fuel truck departing to go to our forward fueling position. That's after topping up all the aircraft in the morning, so that should give them approximately 2 to 2.5 hours of heavy operation. Oh, there goes the squirrel with its bucket. It's off. Oh, there goes the fuel tanker. Okay, there goes the pilot of the Huey. He's heading back out. You can see the Huey now spinning up, getting ready to depart, and off it goes. Now I've repositioned the camera for the final aircraft. And there goes the sheriff. Okay, so that's really all I have. As I said, this is a re-record after the recording failed the other night at the club. I wanted to make sure that I was able to record something for you guys to see via the Facebook page. Thanks again, and I'm happy to take any questions if they're appropriate to answer in an open forum. I'll reply to the comments down below the stream if and when I get a chance. So thank you everyone, and thanks for tuning in for the stream.